Hello everyone and welcome back to Coin Bureau Clips. It is time for me to answer some more of your questions. So thank you to everyone who sent questions in to Instagram. As you can see, this is all very high tech, isn't it? My tech team have selected a few and basically put them into, I don't know, I'm told that if I press a button, the questions will reveal themselves. So we're totally in their hands now. Anyway, yes, thank you for everyone who sent questions in. And without further ado, let's crack on. So I just, okay. There we are. Okay, a question. Thank goodness. So mode POV. Do you think that we reached the Bitcoin bottom? Gosh. This is a tricky one because I've been saying for a long time now that I think prices can go lower from here. It is beginning to look more and more like the bottom came in November after the FTX crash. Now, the reason why I've been saying that we could still go a lot lower is because there are just so many challenges facing the crypto industry at the moment, in particular relating to banking services in the United States, because there has been this coordinated operation to cut the crypto industry out of the banking system in the US. However, there's also been this whole other banking narrative, hasn't there? In certainly the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing banks in the United States and elsewhere going bust, and obviously things like Credit Suisse having to be rescued by UBS. And that narrative has been great for crypto because people have been realizing that banks cannot be trusted and have been fleeing, especially to Bitcoin, but to other cryptos as well, as a hedge basically against the banking system. So now, yeah, it's tricky to see where we go from here. I still think there is a good chance that we could see a new bottom in for BTC and the rest of the crypto market. However, I must admit that my outlook on that is beginning to change. So I think there is, at the moment, I'm kind of 50-50. That's the best figure I can give you. I still think there's a 50% chance we could revisit some lows from here. However, it is looking more and more likely that perhaps the bottom is in. That really is as specific as I can be at this moment because everything is just so uncertain. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out in the next few weeks and months. Okay, thank you very much for your question. Let's move on to the next one. Yes, the banking. So how do you think the bank's collapse will affect the crypto market? Yeah, this kind of follows on from what I've just been kind of talking about. Yeah, we're seeing it really. As I said, people are losing faith in the banking system, if indeed they ever had it, moving across to Bitcoin and other cryptos as well as a hedge. So yeah, I think it's obviously the banking narrative at the moment, the collapse of so many banks is good for crypto. It kind of validates Bitcoin's use case in particular. However, I think it's going to be very interesting to see again how it plays out because let's face it, folks, although a banking collapse has been shown to be good for crypto so far, if it continues, if we see the whole financial system start to crumble, then yes, we could definitely see more inflows into crypto. However, it would also be really, really bad news for, well, everyone, really. And if it gets too bad, then that could negatively affect crypto as well because people will, the whole system could be on the verge of collapse by that point. And I don't really know what the crypto market would look like then, what the world would look like then. So although I know a lot of people, a lot of very pro-crypto people are kind of cheering on the fact that banks are collapsing, remember, it's really not good. Okay, next question. Sparky Jackson, what have you used ChatGPT for so far? This is a very good question. Okay, full disclosure, Sparky. I was writing an article, I was writing a piece the other day for a video that I was doing some research, and I was doing research on EIP 4337, which is this, ERC, I should say, which is this upgrade to Ethereum, and it's all about kind of smart addresses. It's all about basically making Ethereum a bit more user-friendly in the long run. So that video is here on Coin Bureau Clips, so do check it out if you want the lowdown on that. However, before I started writing up the notes, I did think to myself, it's like, okay, let's see what ChatGPT has to say. So I got ChatGPT up, and I typed in something like explain ERC 4337 to me, or something along those lines, and it duly started spitting out text. However, when I started to read, I realized it was talking about EIP 1559, which is obviously not in any way, that's old news. So I was kind of a bit surprised by that. So what I did was I then typed in, that's not correct, ChatGPT, I'm talking about ERC 4337, then gave it a little bit of a prompt as to what it was ERC 4337 was actually about. And ChatGPT sort of apologized and said, oh yes, I was wrong there, and then gave me some more info about EIP 4337, some of which was pretty accurate, some of which was a bit questionable, and so I kind of abandoned using ChatGPT. I mean, I wasn't going to use it to write up all the notes for that particular video, but I was very intrigued to see what it came up with, and I was a bit surprised that it got it all so wrong to start with. So I'm a little bit wary of ChatGPT for that reason. I must admit though, like so many people are talking about it, we are thinking here about how we can use it, how it could help us in our research and all that sort of stuff. But I am worried because, it's a bit like when people first started using Google, I think. Everyone was like, wow, there's suddenly this whole world of answers at our fingertips. The problem is that you can't always trust that information. And I think if we do start to suddenly take what ChatGPT says at face value and just assume that it's right, I think that could be a road to ruin. So yeah, I'm a little bit wary of ChatGPT at the moment for that reason. Obviously, GPT-4 is coming out soon, much more powerful. I think this has got sort of inputs in the trillions as opposed to the hundreds of billions that ChatGPT had. So I will give it another shot, but yeah, I'm wary of what it spews out. Plus, it's much more fun just kind of researching it myself. If ChatGPT did all the work, I wouldn't be able to enjoy kind of digging into these things. Okay, next question. T. Creed, what's the most expensive thing you own, not your flat? Probably my wife. No, I can't say that. What's the most expensive thing I own? Oh gosh, I don't know. I've got to admit, T. Creed, that's a good photo, by the way, looking pretty hench. I've got to admit, I'm not a man of very expensive tastes, so I don't really own very many expensive things. Like maybe a nice bit of furniture or something like that. Maybe my scooter that I scoot around Dubai in. I certainly don't own very many expensive clothes, as you can probably tell. I don't really go in for expensive watches or jewelry or anything like that. I don't have a car yet. I'm thinking of getting a car at some point, but I kind of don't really need one at the moment. So yes, gosh, I don't really have an answer for that. My best guess would be some sort of piece of furniture that's maybe worth more than I think it is, but yeah. Best guess, I'm afraid. My crypto wallet. There we are. My crypto stack. That's expensive. Okay. We got there in the end, didn't we? Okay, G. Aki. What would it mean for the holders if proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies are deemed securities? Good question. Now, this is something I've been thinking about a lot because, yeah, we've had the likes of the SEC saying all proof-of-stake cryptocurrencies are securities. What exactly does that mean? If they were to be designated securities overnight, what would happen? And I have been digging into this a little bit. In fact, I'm thinking about maybe doing a video on it here on Clips at some point. Well, I guess the first thing would be, now I'm guessing this is deemed securities in the United States because that's kind of where all this chat is coming from at the moment. So let's assume we're talking about the States. So I guess for the holders, if your favorite proof-of-stake crypto was deemed a security, probably the first thing you'd see in the United States would be it delisted from exchanges. Now that would obviously be bad in the short term. We saw this with Ripple, obviously, with XRP, when the SEC went after Ripple, accusing them of selling XRP as an unregistered security. Obviously, XRP got delisted from Coinbase and other US exchanges, and its price kind of nosedived. Now, obviously, that would be bad in the short term. In the long term, however, don't forget, obviously, people elsewhere in the world would be able to get their hands on it. And the next stage, I guess, would be for the people behind that proof of stake crypto to then go and argue their case in court against the SEC. As we've seen with Ripple, that could take years. So yeah, short term, I think it would be very bad, obviously, for price and delistings. Longer term, not quite so sure. Obviously, as I say, you'd be able to trade it outside of the United States. There is the option, I think, for the issuers of that crypto to then register it as a security. And from what research I've done into that, that is a very long and painstaking process. So yeah, in the short sort of medium term, it would not be good. The longer term picture, I think, could be a bit more interesting. And I'll try and address that when I do a video on it soon. Okay, very good question. Jorge Ica 87, deep into Aptos, please. I've covered Aptos a couple of times over on our main channel. I did a dedicated Aptos review, and I think I did an Aptos versus Solana comparison a couple of months ago. Now, full disclosure, Jorge, I'm not a particularly big fan of Aptos, and watch the videos and find out why. What I will say is, though, I don't see why that would necessarily stop it doing well in the next bull market. I think there's a good chance that it will. So don't write off Aptos just because I'm not a particularly big fan of it. But yeah, check out that Aptos deep dive and the one where I compare it to Solana and see what you think. Okay, heartbreaking necktie. Interesting. In percentage form, how likely do you think the BTC bottom is in? I think I addressed this one earlier, didn't I? Again, I'd say best guess is 50-50 at this stage. TOMC, what's the difference between CBDCs and cashless society, just contactless stroke cards? This is a very good question. Now, yeah, a lot of people, I think, would imagine, okay, if we were to get a central bank digital currency, if we were to get a currency issued by the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England or the European Central Bank or whatever it was, would we really notice any difference? And this is a good question because so many people, especially in places like the UK where I'm from and over here in the UAE as well, people don't use cash very often. And so many of us, I think, are just used to beeping our card or whatever. So I think it's kind of natural to wonder what would happen with a CBDC. So the first difference to highlight is that a CBDC is obviously, as the name suggests, issued directly by the central bank, which would mean the government would have complete oversight of that. Now, the fact that CBDCs are going to be programmable, that is what makes them really scary, because it could mean that the government, the central bank that's via the central bank that's issuing them, it could mean that the government could very easily place restrictions on how you use that money. So it could place restrictions on where you spend it. It could put restrictions on how much you're able to hold of that currency, so how much you're able to save. And it's also important to remember, I think, that, yeah, there's this degree of oversight. Like, as I say, central banks will cut out the commercial banks. Now, whether that means commercial banks survive or not, I don't know. But the degree of oversight that governments would have, the degree of control, is the main difference. And I guess the big thing to remember is that the big selling point for a CBDC will be convenience. It'll be easy to use. The money will just be there in your account with the central bank. It will appear. You won't ever need to worry about getting cash out. You'll just be able to spend it. But the convenience aspect is the way that the governments will sell it. And I think they will anticipate the fact that most people will take the path of least resistance, because if they make it more and more difficult for people to use any other system, then most people will just opt to use the CBDC because it makes their life easier. And that's what makes them so insidious, this sort of overall sense of control that the government and the central bank issuing them will have. Because when you use regular fiat money, even though that has its many drawbacks, and even though the banks can stop you, can limit access to your account, they can freeze your account, they can also obviously see what you're spending and pass that information on to the government if it's requested, certainly in many countries. But there is still a degree of freedom that you get from being able to use that sort of money, especially if you're able to withdraw it and use it as cash, because there's no oversight with cash. So, Yes, that's a fairly sort of long-winded answer, but yeah, there are very important differences between CBDCs and regular money. That is why crypto offers such a good alternative to both. Okay, next question. Adil.ijaz. Will the bigger banks also get a bank run if the wave sweeps the smaller banks? Another great question. Now, it looks like this banking crisis in the US is being used as an opportunity to basically move assets from smaller banks to larger banks. And obviously the larger banks are much more connected to the people in government. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that there won't be runs on larger banks. And larger banks, like smaller banks, don't keep enough assets on hand. They practice fractional reserve banking like everyone else. However, I think the important thing to remember with these larger banks is that they are, to use that well-worn expression, too big to fail. So there is no way that the government is going to let big banks like, say, JP Morgan or BNY Mellon fail, because they are systemically important. So what we're seeing is this massive transfer, as people are losing confidence in smaller banks, this massive transfer over to larger banks like the ones just mentioned and others. And that basically centralizes power. It consolidates power in the hands of those banks. And that ultimately feeds more power back into the government. It's a scary time. Okay. Secret Indian TV. Regret missing bottom. Yeah, all right. No need to rub it in. Yes, I do. If that is indeed the case, I wish I had bought more after FTX collapsed. I was pretty convinced it was going lower since then. I have been very surprised by the recent recovery, but how long will it last? Could there be new lows incoming? Yeah, there's a lot to look out for. Okay. And I think that's the last of them. Okay, so thanks very much, guys, for sending in those questions. I know you enjoy these Q&As, so I will do another one again very soon. So do keep those questions coming in. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching.